Good evening, gamers, and welcome to another exciting short takes here, where we hop on here, talk about kind of the news that's happening right now, give our in the heat of the moment reactions to it. So I'm Ben, on the other end of the microphone. That's Brent, and joining us for the first time in the short take stage is Mr. Frankie Ayler, our short pause compatriot partner in crime here at the website / YouTube channel. Fellas, what's going on this evening?
Oh, man, just another day in paradise. Getting ready for Thanksgiving week, short work week, and then stuff my fat face full of food and go into a food coma.
Sounds wonderful.
Short work week, man. I wish I could share that one. Man,
Sorry.
it's gonna be a long week.
Yeah, I have Thursday off, of course. I technically don't have Friday off, but I may end up taking Friday off as well. Give myself a little bit of an extra weekend. So I hear you on that, man. Maybe get some gaming in over the weekend. That would be cool. It's maybe wishful thinking, but hey, you never know. Cool. So we are gathering up this evening to talk about a story that broke a few days ago. So for the first time in the history of E3, PlayStation will be skipping E3. So obviously this is a big deal. E3's been around for 24 years. The fact that Sony will not be a part of it for the first time ever probably says a lot about a lot. But we're gonna kind of parse through that and figure out exactly what all this means. So I'm going to kick things off here. I'm going to read a Variety article, and that's kind of going to be the basis for our discussion here based on this. It reads as follows. Sony Interactive Entertainment, currently riding high on record sales of its PlayStation 4 gaming console, won't be hosting its annual press conference or showing up at all during next year's massive E3 Expo. So this is like the double whammy here. So not only are they not holding their press conference, which they have every year for however many years, but they won't even be at the event at all with any of the massive amount of the show floor that they typically command. The news was buried inside the Entertainment Software Association's announcement of the 2019 show that quoted competitors Nintendo and Microsoft. Sony confirmed their absence in a statement to Variety. Quote, as the industry evolves, Sony Interactive Entertainment continues to look for inventive opportunities to engage the community, according to the statement. PlayStation fans mean the world to us, and we always want to innovate, think differently, and experiment with new ways to delight gamers. As a result, we have decided not to participate in E3 in 2019. We are exploring new and familiar ways to engage our community in 2019, and we can't wait to share our plans with you. End quote. This will be the first time in E3's 24-year history that PlayStation will not be attending the event. It is also the second major PlayStation event canceled by the company in recent months. This, of course, referring to the PlayStation Experience. In September, Sean Layden, chairman of Sony Interactive Entertainment Worldwide, said that the company wouldn't be hosting this year's PlayStation Experience, citing a lack of games to show. This was the quote from that. Now that we have Spider-Man out the door, we're looking down in 2019 to games like Dreams and Days Gone, but we wouldn't have enough to bring people all together in some location in North America to have that event, Layden said. We don't want to set expectations really high and then not deliver on it, end quote. PlayStation Experience started 4 years ago as a celebration of PlayStation's 20th anniversary, as we all remember. This year, though, Layden expressed that we have a lot of progress that we're making while we have a lot of progress we're making in our games, also there's just not that much to share at this point for upcoming titles. The same could be true for E3 2019, though that does raise concerns about the PlayStation 4 itself and a potential lack of upcoming titles. This timing also comes just a month after Sony CEO Kenichiro Yoshida confirmed that a successor to PlayStation 4 is going to happen, of course. At this point, what I can say is it's necessary to have a next-generation hardware, Yoshida stated. Yoshida declined to confirm whether or not the PlayStation console will be called the PlayStation 5, which seems like the natural choice, of course. Now, we have another quote here from Jennifer Clark, who is what's her title, Brent? She's the Senior Director of Communications or something like that?
Senior Vice President of Communications for PlayStation.
Senior Vice President of Communications for PlayStation. She elaborated on the Sony statement further by saying, quote, we will not activate or hold a press conference around E3. She goes on to state further, we are looking at events as a whole and how we can speak more to our fans and continue to wow them. The timing of PSX and E3 didn't allow for that. But lots of exciting things to come, and we hope to share shortly. Some of our biggest games will have key milestones next year, so we will work hard to blow those up. End quote. Woo. So we got a lot to chew on here, fellas, in terms of Sony not being a part of E3 for the first time in 24 years. So Brent, we go to you first, man. Let's get this discussion started. What's jumping out to you here? What do you think of everything that's going on with this?
Well, when we first saw the story break, everyone was kind of like, "Hey, what's going on? What's Sony doing?" And we actually, all of us started texting back and forth like, "What could be the reason behind this? Why would Sony make this decision?" And dude, I think a lot of people have already figured out. Man, I mean, it's simple as this. The last couple of E3s, we've seen the same 4 big games. We've seen Days Gone, we've seen Death Stranding, we've seen parts of The Last of Us 2. We just saw Ghost of Tsushima. So I mean, we've seen the big titles. Okay, we know what the big titles they're working on, and if the PS5 really is due out in fall 2020. They're not gonna. It's not. I guess it's just not worth for them to put on a big show where they're gonna show off the same games that are gonna be coming on PlayStation 4, the same games we've seen the last couple of years, and also maybe it might not be worth throwing another show together for the games of like MLB The Show or Neo 2 or Dreams or any of those. Those games are really cool looking games. But I don't think those are tentpole titles. They're not flagship series. These. I mean, MLB The Show, you could argue that, but. For the most part, I don't think these games warrant a big stage. And if PlayStation 5 is due out in fall 2020, I gotta believe most of the other first-party studios are working on those games, those launch titles, and they're not gonna be able to bring these guys out on stage and say, "Here's the game we're working on for PlayStation 5." It wouldn't even seem right. And if you think about it, June 2019, that's 17 months away from fall 2020. They're not going to be able to bring these developers out here and say, "Here's the PS5 games we're working on. We'll announce it later in the year." I think it's just a bad window for them just to host a show. It doesn't make any sense for them to host a show. So that's the only reasoning I have behind it. That I can think of why they're doing this.
There's no question that that PlayStation 5 is a huge factor in this, and I'm sure they're carefully plotting how they're going to reveal it, what the price point's going to be, what's going to be the innards of the unit, all this kind of stuff. So there's no question that's a huge part of this. Franklin, I want to pull you in on the discussion now. So you heard what Brent had to say, mentioned a lot about the PlayStation 5. What's your thoughts on this in terms of not only what Brent said, but what's jumping out from you from this story?
No, actually, I 100% agree with Brent. The PlayStation 5 is obviously right around the corner. Sony has all the worldwide teams, and the stuff they're working on now, I think they've already iterated several times now. This is pretty much the swan song for the PS4, as we've said as much on the show before. But the thing that jumps out to me in particular was, you mentioned they canceled PlayStation Experience. They kind of cited a lack of games to show. And I mean, I understand that part to a degree, but also I remember just the reaction that show got last time that they did one, because it wasn't the PlayStation Experience conference that we expected. It was just kind of, casually sitting on a couch on stage, just talking about stuff, a couple minor announcements, but, largely a lot of people did not like that format, didn't like that show. So, at this point, Sony still has those same games in the pipeline. Why would they want to waste their time putting on a show that people are just going to, go online and complain, "Oh, wow, good job. It show us the same stuff all over again, blah, blah, blah." It's just, I think, from a PR standpoint, it makes the most sense to just skip doing a show for that reason alone. Do you really want to deal with all your fans complaining about how, "Oh, well, Xbox was there and they had this and that, and, you guys didn't even try." And it's like, look, I mean, I think all of us could agree that Sony has gone, pedal to the metal this entire generation. They've come out, they've delivered game after game, once, they kind of got into the groove of things. And now we're at that point where, you're looking at the next console. You don't want it to launch with a sparse lineup, we don't want to see the PlayStation 5 launch with Knack 3 and Killzone Shadowfall 2 and, just kind of throwaway stuff that, we don't, necessarily care about, to a degree. So I think it's fair to, assume that, obviously Guerrilla is probably working on a new Horizon game, and just with where The Last of Us 2 and Ghost of Tsushima in particular are falling, I don't think it's, out of their own possibility to assume that those games also are probably going to have a presence on the next console as well. So I think it just, at this point, they're looking at their best interests of, okay, well, this is where we're at with these. This is, they obviously probably have a window of when those games are coming out. So if those games, I'm also just going to go and assume that, Ghost of Tsushima and Last of Us and Death Stranding are not releasing next year, just based on the fact that they're not going to be at E3. There's not going to be any announcements anywhere. Those games aren't coming out next year. There's no way. I would be shocked if they did. So I'm expecting, February, March, so Sony sends out some invites, has an event somewhere, announce PS5, and kind of pick it up from there. But yeah, it just sounds like to me this is kind of like their victory lap, more or less, right? Kind of just taking the year to assess where they're at, go full speed ahead.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we could be upset with that.
Yeah, I think Frankie's onto something too. I mean, it's like this gen is pretty much over. The competition between, Sony and Microsoft and Nintendo. Sony is just, they're going to ride out their big titles that they've got for the rest of this gen, and they're just saying, okay, look, you know what's coming. We've done the last 3 E3. They're all the same games. These are the games, like Frankie said, these are going to be the swan song. This is it. So and like I said, it's just too early for them to do an E3 to talk about any other games because all those games are PS5 games. All the other worldwide studios are working on PS5 games. None of them are going to be sitting there working on PS4 games. That's just not going to happen at this point. So, yeah, they've got this gen in the bag. They're focusing on, they've got their games out. They've done shows where they talked about these 4 big titles and all the other ones, the smaller titles that we talked about. But this gen's over for Sony. They're set to ride high with these titles, and then the PS5 is going to be the focus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there's a lot to parse here, and you guys have brought up a lot of good points. A lot of the stuff I was thinking, particularly what you were talking about there, Frankie, with the last PlayStation experience, and even some of the reaction to the last E3 press conference. It's like, fans are especially fans on the internet are just notoriously pessimistic or just looking for every negative thing that they can latch onto. So with the last PlayStation experience conference they did, it was not received well. For the most part, people were not happy with that format, and that's because the expectations had been set. Sony has come out and done some dynamite press conferences this generation, like some all-time press conferences this generation have come out of the house of PlayStation, whether at E3 or at the PlayStation experience with the reveal of The Last of Us 2. That was a huge press conference, a huge moment. We're talking huge games that get announced at these things. So a precedent has been set, an expectation has been set, and they've kind of set the standard this generation with just the rapid fire, hour-long, just balls to the wall, in your face announcement after announcement press conference. So when fans go to watch one of these things and it's not that, it immediately becomes a disappointment to them. So when you look at what happened with the PlayStation experience, if they don't have that experience to give to their fans, it's like you said, Frank, it's like, why even bother? People are just going to be they're accustomed to this type of press conference. Now that's what they want. If they can't do that at E3, why even bother? They're accustomed to this balls to the wall press conference, and if Sony comes out and gives them anything less than that, it's just going to be, it's like you said, it's going to be another PR debacle where people are going to be upset because they didn't see the type of press conference that they think they want to see. So it all makes sense from that perspective. As a fan, I'm pretty disappointed in this. Obviously, I do the majority of my gaming on PlayStation. So to see an E3, which is a show that I love watching every year, I get excited about it. To see an E3 that's not going to house Sony in any way, shape, or form is really disappointing from a fan perspective. My excitement for that conference now goes way down. And that's kind of a heartbreaker. Microsoft has taken their event off site last year. I know they're going to be there this year. They might be the only ones there. Nintendo's, they don't do their conference there anymore. They do their Nintendo Directs. Activision's never been there, pretty much. So it's E3 continues to kind of dwindle down here in terms of the people attending this event. So I think that's another conversation with this announcement is what does this mean for E3? Is this kind of a relic of the past that is going to be kind of riding off in the sunset here at some point, or is this kind of just a 1-year anomaly blip in the radar where Sony's not there and they'll be back to their old hijinks next time once PlayStation 5 is announced? So a few things to chew on, your fellas. Let's first start with E3. What does this mean for the future of E3? Brent, hop in here on this, man. You can chime in on that. If there's anything else I said that struck a nerve, feel free to comment on that as well.
First, quick shout out to the chat. We got Fastback is in there, JD, Jacob is in there. Thanks for stopping by, guys. Always good to see you guys in the chat. I don't think this is going to hurt E3. I think E3 is going to continue to be E3. But there is one thing I do want to ask you about. You mentioned Activision. Typically, Activision is on Sony's stage at E3 with either the Call of Duty and or the Destiny 2 Fall expansion. That's typically a stage where they like to show off their third-party partnerships. Where does that leave Activision? Do you think this will drive Activision to have their own show? I mean, Activision's not going to have an E3 go by and not do a full-on review for Call of Duty. Yes, they do that thing in May for the NBA playoffs. They do like a teaser, but there's typically a hands-on demo of a section of a game. Other than last year, obviously last year they didn't do that at E3, but typically Activision has a presence on Sony's stage. What does this do with those partnerships?
Just to chime in on this real quick. So, like you mentioned, Brent, last year they did the Blackout conference. We joke about that conference all the time.
Yeah.
About the this is Blackout moment and fade to the end of the show. So, they don't need E3. Activision has never really needed E3. Yeah, it makes sense for them to come to one of these publishers' press conferences and show off their wares, but they don't need that, dude. They're Activision. The Activision Blizzard. They've got some of the biggest franchises in the world. If E3 is not around, they don't care. They'll simply just do their own thing. Whether it's just putting out a trailer, whether it's hosting their own reveal event, which I think is the route that they're going to take. That seems to be the route that the industry just as a whole is going. Like everybody wants to do their own controlled thing where they announce things the way that they want to announce them. And I don't think there's any question that the Activision will do the same thing with the next round of Call of Duty, and they probably won't bat an eye at the fact that they don't have a Sony press conference to play it, to show their game off at.
That's a good point. Yeah, that was just one of the things I was thinking about. But in terms of E3, I don't think it's going to do anything to E3. I mean, there's still going to be a lot of excitement. There's going to be a lot of cool reveals there, and I think Sony will fully go back to E3. The following year, closer when the PS5 is launched. I don't think they're going to abandon it. I just think at this particular year, at this particular point in time, where their games are lined up, where the games are in development, it just doesn't make any sense for them to go there. Yeah, I mean, they could have something on the floor, but honestly, it's all the same games. They're going to be the same games that we've seen, so I don't really know if they even need a presence on the floor. Yes, it's Sony, and they should be there, and I'm sure there's some people that argue that, but for me, I know what games they're getting that are coming out. And that's all I need to know from them. And if they have nothing new to show off or to reveal, don't go.
Frankie, I wanna get your thoughts on this. I want to throw something else out there for you though. So we have an E3 now with the two biggest publishers currently in the console space. Nintendo and Sony have a more subdued presence. In Sony, they have zero presence at all. So we have the two biggest names out there don't have as high a profile as presence at the show. Brent says he doesn't think E3 is going to be affected by that. So what do you think about this? And also, where does this place Microsoft? It gives them a very interesting position in the fact that they have the whole entire stage to themselves. Do they take Xbox and take this event off-site again, or do they just basically Sony just gave them half the show floor? They're like, look, we're not going to be there anymore. Do they just go all out crazy and just go Microsoft to hell in the conference hall there? Do they take this opportunity to have the stage to themselves and reveal the next Xbox? Like what does this look like for Microsoft? But first, your thoughts on E3.
All right. Well, as far as E3 goes, the other thing too that I think a lot of us are kind of overlooking is the fact that E3 typically isn't a public show. So if Sony's not there presenting or talking to media or investors or whoever, all the meetings they hold with at E3, there's no reason for them to be there. So already, if you're not going to have anything new to show, all your stuff's out there, why are you going to go? Mm-hmm. If everyone's literally already either had hands on with the stuff that's coming out, obviously Days Gone, and, the other stuff is not ready to come out. So just from that perspective alone, them being there doesn't make sense. Mm-hmm. But as far as like Microsoft's stance to this whole thing, I mean, I would be shocked if they don't capitalize on this because, I mean, I know, there's been a lot of talk from a lot of people, about E3's relevance, going forward. And it has, like, you even hear, game journalists and, we've had David Jaffe on talking about this too, but it's just the importance of that event just because, like you guys are talking about, everyone likes to have their own events and have essentially the spotlight on them. like that show is getting smaller and smaller. But, I think in Microsoft's case, it's kind of, all eyes on them at this point because who else is there? I mean, EA holds their stuff off site. I think 2K might have like a broadcast booth. I don't think they even really bring anything typically. So outside of like maybe WB Games, I don't know who else even really has significant booth space because I mean Konami doesn't go anymore. So, but on that note, I wanted to mention there was somebody made up some floor plans for E3 that was basically like all Microsoft, and then there's like hot dogs and like vending and food trucks, and then like there's a little Konami arcade. Like, yeah, well, that's fair.
With some pachinko machines.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I would be shocked though if Microsoft doesn't, kind of pick up some of the third party deals maybe this year, especially with like Call of Duty and Assassin's Creed. I don't know how much to read into Sony not being there, if they're kind of, pulling their, what's the phrase I want to use? Like pulling their horses off of the battlefield for, for this generation, if they're kind of like, all right, well, we're almost at 90 million. The next console's another year or so off. Let Microsoft have the marketing for everything. I mean, at this point, do they care? I mean, your Call of Duty DLC deals down to being exclusive for a single week now. So, and I mean, that was just kind of one of the big ones he had coming in. So, just the way that this stuff's kind of gone this generation, I don't know how important it is to Activision at this point or Sony to have, a conference to really just show off third party stuff. I don't know. I don't know how well that stuff pays off for them. Especially like Red Dead. Like I don't think we ever saw Red Dead on an E3 stage with anybody, did we?
I don't think we did.
Yeah, Rockstar. You talk about somebody that does whatever the hell they want.
Yeah.
Rockstar rolls to the beat of their own drum. Outside of the Grand Theft Auto tattoo during the Xbox 360 days with Peter Moore.
Yeah.
I don't know that Rockstar has been on any stage since then. They don't need stages at this point. They're just they are a stage unto themselves.
Right.
Didn't they announced like that agent game or whatever for the PS3 that never came to fruition?
Yeah, agent.
Yeah, they announced the title screen. That was pretty awesome.
But yeah, no. So I don't know. I don't know how. Like I said, like if they're at E3 or not, Red Dead wasn't. Obviously, that game sold gangbusters, and you have their little, marketing sticker on there that everyone got upset about because everyone has to cry about stuff like that. So I don't know. I mean, and the grand scheme of things, I don't think it's as important to to them, in the console space.
Brent, before you hop in here, I want to put something else on the table for you. So I want your thoughts on where this puts Microsoft. And so with this news that Sony won't be at E3 and they won't be at PlayStation Experience, something else I want to throw out there, like does this guarantee that the PlayStation 5 will not be revealed in the first half of 2019 or up to this point? And if that's the case, like does Microsoft seize the opportunity to announce their console first, get people excited about the next successor to Xbox when they have the entire E3 stage to themselves?
That's actually a good question. Taz is in the chat, and he said if Microsoft has the whole stage, it could backfire. But what if they also don't? But what if they also don't have enough good content to show off for for the time that they're up on stage? And you mentioned the next Xbox. Could it be an opportunity for them to kind of like seize the moment and shock the world with the new Xbox? Yeah, I'm sure that's the thing. But then you got to think. Does Xbox want to show their cards yet? I mean, obviously, we were going back and forth here with who had the most powerful console when the PS4 launched. It was stronger than the Xbox One. Now the Xbox One X is the strongest and most powerful console out there. Obviously, these two get off on this sort of this title for their platform. So, yeah, I mean, depending on what Microsoft's planning to launch their console, if Microsoft is eyeing 2020, no, I don't think they're going to sit there and throw all their stuff out. I mean, they can sit there and say, yes, here's a new Xbox, and here's some of the plans. I mean, they hinted at it last year, so maybe they are setting it up for this year. But even if they do come out this year and announce it, I don't think they're going to reveal too much about it. They're going to still play those cards close to the chest. But, I mean, yeah, it's an opportunity there. But in terms of, like, their content, when Microsoft's on stage, yeah, look, we know Halo Infinite's coming. We know Gears 5 is coming. But you're not going to see any of the stuff from those other developers, especially the ones they just signed. We're not going to see anything from them. So how deep can Microsoft really go into a portfolio of games at this E3, I'm not sure. I mean, maybe the stage themselves, it could backfire possibly. It really, I'm not say backfire, but it could be underwhelming if they don't have anything outside of what we already know is coming: Halo Infinite and Gears 5.
One of Forza 8.
Oh,
Forza 8. One of the things that people may be asking themselves is why not do a third party focus showcase? So, Microsoft's done this a lot in the past, where the majority of their show has been based around third party experiences. Like, we know there's a number of third party experiences out there that still have to come out this gen, like Cyberpunk and whatnot. So some people may be asking, like, why doesn't Sony take that route and do one of those kind of focus things? I think that it goes back to what we talked about earlier in the show, is that's not what people expect from a Sony press conference. Like, when you go to a Sony press conference, it's fun to see the third party stuff for sure, but the fans, what they want what Worldwide Studios is working on. Like, they want the next big exclusive game that's coming out from the first party developers. It's similar to like a Nintendo. If Nintendo comes out and they put on a Nintendo Direct and it's devoid of any like first party Nintendo games, no matter how cool those third party games look, you're not going to help but walk away from that thing disappointed. So I can't help but think that that's the thinking here with Sony in terms of not just doing like a third party based press conference.
Mm-hmm. That wouldn't be a bad idea either. I mean, it's something they could look into.
Yeah. So the other aspect of this that we've kind of danced around here a little bit is the PlayStation 5. It's kind of the elephant in the room at this point. So we know it's coming, and we have to be mere moments away from that first flood of leaked information, like legitimately leaked information on this thing, where we start to piece together like what this thing's going to look like. So with everything that's going on here, does this mean that the PlayStation 5 is a fall 2020 release? So for myself personally, when the PlayStation Experience was canceled, I was like, all right, there's a very high probability that the PlayStation 5 is now a 2019 device, because there's no way we go into E3 and they don't have anything to show us again. But they one-upped to me. Not only do they not have anything to show, they just canceled the whole damn thing. So does this now mean that PlayStation 5 is fall 2020? Like, Brent, is this guaranteed at this point that this is the target date for this thing?
I guess we're going to have to see what Sony does throughout early 2019. If they announce that PSX is coming back, if they announce that PSX will make a return in some form at the end of the year, then I'd be like, okay, yeah, then we might be looking at something where they'll do a reveal there, or they'll announce it there and say fall something. Or they could just do what they did with the PlayStation 4, have something in February of 2020. Hey, look, here's the PS5. See you this fall. But I mean, without having the PSX there, man, I wouldn't be surprised if it was like kind of a fall or a spring thing. Kind of do what the Switch did: go out in the spring, deal with the shortage and the demand and whatnot, and then have a bunch of systems ready come the fall rush when people are out buying systems and stuff. Have plenty of systems then. I mean, that's another way they could look at it. I'm not sure what they're gonna do here, dude.
Franklin, let me get your thoughts on this, man. So where we're currently sitting, I mean, at least from my vantage point, it seems like fall 2020 has to be like the leader in the clubhouse for the release date for this thing.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I mean, like Brent said, I could see them, if they do a PSX next year, then obviously I would expect some kind of big announcement then, especially since you've skipped the biggest event of the year, in E3, why are you suddenly going to have a PlayStation Experience with obviously nothing to show? So
just on that real quick, how cool would that be if at a fan event where you've got your whole entire, like, just your most hardcore fans are there, along with the press, you decided to unveil the PlayStation 5? That would be pretty neat. Continue on.
Before Frankie starts, I'm gonna tell you right now, if they do a PSX, if they announce a PSX next December, I'm guaranteeing it's a PS5 reveal. There's absolutely no way. There's no way. There's no way.
Unless they reveal it beforehand, and maybe they do something else at play. But yeah, you guys are 100% right. If they wouldn't cancel a PlayStation Experience with nothing to show, then announce one, and then have nothing to show again. Right? They would have to show us something.
But go ahead, Frankie. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, no, you're good. But the other possibility I was thinking too was, just kind of ditching like this mindset where you need to have consoles in the fall, and we are aiming for summer maybe. That way they come back to E3 next year. That's when you kind of get your full blown like game showcase reveal, and then hey, all this stuff's gonna be out next month. Like I think something like that would be pretty damn cool. If not borderline crazy to actually see happen, but I think honestly, like if that's the thing that they're able to do, that might be the way to go.
I mean, we've seen it happen with the big releases, right?
Mhm.
So Sony's kind of championed that this generation where they're releasing their big titles early on in the year, like in March and in April. They're getting their big dogs out there, and they're just leaving the fall to the third parties. So
Mhm.
they've already done it with their software. I don't think it's out of the realm or out of question that they would try it with their console, especially after watching what Nintendo did with the Switch. I mean, they see the success that it had, and Brent, you alluded to it. Get the hardware out there, get the hardware shortages out of the way. By the time you roll around to the holiday season, you've got fully stocked shelves of this item that's going to be incredibly hot during the holidays. You take advantage of that. It's. I mean, you can't argue that it's a solid business strategy.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and I mean, you think about the titles that could possibly be coming out in 2020. You want to have a bunch of PS5s on the shelf for the next Call of Duty. You want to have a bunch of PS5s on the shelf for Destiny 3. If that's when, I mean, that's got to be when Destiny 3 is coming out. You want to have as many systems, and I guarantee you, publishers like Activision and all that stuff for those big titles, they want as many systems on the shelves as they can. So no, I don't think it's a big stretch to think, a March release, much like the Switch did. Get that supply and demand caught up, get everything good to go. Boom, here's the fall. Destiny 3, the next Call of Duty, Assassin's Creed, all those big titles. And look, plenty of PlayStation 5s and assumably the next Xbox One.
And it's a little bit different with Sony and Microsoft because Nintendo, they don't rely as much on the Assassin's Creed and the Call of Duty. They don't have those on their system. But if you take a system, release it earlier in the year, and then 6 months in, we get like the big third-party titles like the Assassin's Creed and the Call of Duty. Like, how much better are those than just ported over, versions of the current year when they come out during the fall? Like, they could legitimately make an Assassin's Creed or a Call of Duty that's made for the PlayStation 5, that's made for the Xbox 2, if they get a little more leeway in terms of that time. So if they release in the spring and the system comes out in the fall, like you get some games that are actually designed for the console, which would be exciting too for third parties.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Fastback in the chat asks, price of the PS5. I'm gonna say right now, $500. It can't be anything over that. Anything over that is too much, dude.
Yeah, personally, I think they're going to shoot for $399 again. That the price has worked well in the past. I'm still not 100% convinced that people are over the moon to spend more than $400 on a gaming console. Obviously, we have things like the Xbox One X, and that's done well to a certain extent. But I don't know that that's a price point that's mass market yet. So I'm gonna stick with $399 is gonna be what they're gonna shoot for, whatever kind of box that entails. I think that's the magic number.
I think I agree with you, but I think too, we're Microsoft's kind of touching on it a bit now, but I think if they hit that price point, there's going to be some kind of trade-off. I could see them maybe finally rolling out like a discless console.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously your $500 version has, a disk drive in it for those who are into physical media still. But I think that's when we're going to kind of start seeing, that aspect of all this kind of start to roll out too, is obviously next gen. Like this gen's been very big on digital. We've seen EA, Activision, more than 50% of their game sales have been digital. So I think, it would be in Sony and Microsoft's best interest, obviously, to kind of explore that as an option, as maybe, a cheaper alternative for these consoles when they come out.
Yeah, there's no question that that's the way the industry is moving, and we also know that streaming is coming on and going to be a huge thing. So I'd be very shocked if the PlayStation 5 didn't anticipate this and include some type of a robust streaming package as a part of that console, at least in some respects. So I think it makes sense too. Like, is that an acceptable trade-off? Like, would you give up a disk drive? Would you give up like an onboard hard drive, and maybe just for a bunch of cloud storage? Like, would you give up this kind of physical stuff if that meant at $399 that we got a robust like beast of a machine, and even that much more so because we don't have to spend the extra money on disk drives and hard drives and that kind of stuff? Man, I'd be game for that trade-off.
I think a diskless system is is a no-brainer. I'd be all for it. I mean, like I said, I understand the appeal of collecting discs and all that stuff, man, but I'm too lazy, dude. I just want to be able to switch between the games. I don't want to take a disc out, go put it back in the box, bring the other game back. I just want to go play the other game. So, I mean, I used to love collecting collector's editions. I have a bunch of stuff, but, man, at this point in time, if it's going to be discless, I'm cool with that. I have no problems with that.
Kind of reaching that point myself.
Oh, no. Now, if Frankie says that, now I know it's for real.
Frankie, the eternal waffler when it comes to discs.
True.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
Oh, JD. No,
there's-
JD. I love JD. You say that now, Brent, but until you start pulling games off your hard drive, I don't think I've ever had that happen, dude. Don't think I've ever had that happen, JD.
JD, the leader of the digital conspiracy movement. We can always count on him holding the flag.
Yeah, it's JD.
Yeah,
There's like that whole thing with PT though. Like people were saying they pushed a silent update that kind of killed the game for anyone who still had it. I don't know if that's true or not.
No, there was a rumor going around, but apparently it was shot down. Konami came out and said, no, we're not pushing anything out. So my PT is still intact. It works fine. I fired it up, and I was like, when I fired it up, I was like, man, I hope I don't see update. I was like, please don't let me see update, but it played just fine. So I'd be shocked if they did that. Even for Konami, I'd be shocked.
Yeah.
I think the bigger issue I think to point towards for this digital stuff was the closing down of the Wii digital storefront, and pretty sure people lost access to all those digital games they bought via the Wii shop once they completely shut down the Wii. So I think that's like a big case study there to point to for the digital versus physical argument. And as much as we joke with JD, there is a contingent of people that are worried about this kind of stuff, and rightfully so. We don't have enough data in front of us. We don't have enough years in front of us to kind of determine like what this looks like when you've got all of these digital games and all of these servers that are housing these things. Like, what do these companies do? Do they simply close down these things and hurt a few like niche people that are really hardcore about this stuff? Or do they kind of cut the cord on this and kind of keep moving forward, and it just is what it is. So I think there's some legitimate concerns about this. I don't know if it's enough to prevent diskless systems and streaming and all that kind of stuff, though. We're clearly steamrolling towards that. That's going to be the future, and hopefully these developers and publishers can figure out a way to deliver this in a way where we don't lose access to our digital games at some point in the distant future.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
So, yeah, I think that's gonna do it. We've kind of covered all the different angles of this. Anything else you guys want to throw out there in the universe? Anything else we haven't touched on in regards to PlayStation not being at E3 that you think deserves discussion?
No, man, I was just, like I said, it was just one of those announcements where I didn't see it coming, but, at first, you try, you avoid, when you see an announcement like this, you avoid social media immediately. Avoid social media and try to figure out what's going on. I mean, it was hilarious. Everything from Sony's backing out of gaming. Sony's first-party studios are giving up. They can't compete with all the Microsoft acquisitions and all this jazz. You're just like, get away from it. Like, get away from social media.
Who said that?
Dude, just go on Twitter. It's Twitter. There's somebody saying it. There's somebody saying it.
That's what's absurd about it.
Yeah, it is absurd. But so when something like this happens, you have to step back and think about it yourself. Take off your whatever cap you're wearing, whatever side you're on. Just think, why are they doing this? And if you look back the last couple E3s, we've seen the same damn games that we're all excited about, games that look really, really good. But all the other first-party studios guys are working on PS5 titles. They're not going to have an E3, another E3, where they can't talk about PS5 games. They can't talk about it yet. So that's if you look right there, yes, the PS5 is coming. First-party studios are working on all the games. That's why we're not having an E3, dude.
Yeah, this doesn't hurt Sony. This has no bearing on their business. Like, their business is not going to tank because they didn't do an E3 press conference or they didn't hold a PlayStation experience. Like, Sony is pretty transcendent in the video game space at this point. So, people aren't going to stop playing their PlayStations. People aren't going to stop buying PlayStations because they heard Sony's not at E3. So that's just absolutely goofy to even mention that. About you, Frank, anything else you want to get off your chest, man, or pretty much covered it?
No, I think we pretty much touched everything. I just I'm gonna be curious to see going forward, if if Sony does return to E3, if they've maybe decided they don't need to be at E3 like a lot of these other companies have. I just
I'm curious about that too. Yeah.
yeah, that's the big thing I want to see is, just after next year, where does E3 stand with, gamers and the gaming, industry at large. So I think that's honestly going to be the biggest thing to watch out of all this, outside of obviously, the next generation's probably within another couple of years, which is exciting. Can't wait.
It's funny you mention that because seriously, if you look, we all bag on Nintendo sometimes, and we look and their Nintendo Directs, but there's a lot of people that watch the Nintendo Directs. There's a ton of people that tune in for those things, and they get a lot of attention. And if that's something that Sony's looking at, like, look, we don't have to go to E3. We don't have to spend all this money to go to a thing that's just that where Nintendo's like, hey, we do fine with this right here. It's all digital media, dude. It's all streaming. People. That's what people are accustomed to doing. It's a lot easier than paying for a ticket to going to an event where only so many people can get in. Dude, streaming stuff is where it's at. And if Sony can save some money by like, hey, we don't have to go to this show for the however many people are there, we can just do what we do and stream stuff. Why not do that?
Yeah. And I personally, I love the Nintendo Directs. That's quick, rapid fire, right to the point. You get all the news, release dates for all kinds of stuff, that even stuff that you get a lot of surprises in those stuff that, maybe leaked, but chances are it hasn't. So, I feel like a lot of those too, like, there's less of a chance for leaks to get out about anything that you're going to be showing versus E3. Obviously, you have all the, all the prep that goes in, people taking pictures of like different, like Titanfall things and, people who catch, bits of, the conference rehearsals and stuff like that. So there's all kinds of stuff that can leak from doing a live produced show versus, what Nintendo's been doing. So honestly, if more developers or publishers go that route, I'd be excited. I think that would be a way to kind of bring the excitement back into gaming and, that sense of, holy crap, I did not see that coming, so.
Yeah, and Fastback, mentioned in the chat, true, but Nintendo still has floor presence. I think floor presence is the least interesting thing out of E3 if you're not at E3. I mean, there's more people watching E3 than there are attending. There's more people watching around the world. So floor presence, other than for the people that are there, I don't think it matters. I really don't think unless you're part of the media there and you're trying to play the games that they've already talked about or whatever, yeah, I can understand that small group of people being, oh, why isn't Sony here? Dude, for everybody else that's not there, nobody cares if there's nothing on the floor. I mean, that's the way I look at it. I mean, I understand the importance of it being there for the people who are there, but I don't go to E3, and I'm sure some of the guys in the chat don't go to E3. But if for those of you that are going and hoping to see Sony, I understand why you're disappointed, but at the end of the day, floor presence is the least important thing about E3. It's about the press conferences and the showcases that people are seeing and watching online.
Right. And the other thing, too, is a lot of, especially Giant Bomb's main website that I've followed over the years, but, hearing them kind of talk about how it's nicer having like a lighter load going into E3. They're not trying to cram all these appointments in, see all these different games, like it feels like it's kind of, maybe a blessing in disguise. With so many different, publishers kind of ditching the show. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, like I said, I'll be curious to see how big E3 is next year. I hope WB has a presence because they're awesome.
Indeed.
Yeah. So so a lot of questions out there, but also a lot of excitement with next gen right around the corner. And I love this time where we're 18 to 24 months away from the release of the next gen, and there's all these rumors that are going to start coming out every week, and you've got some guys that are going to be just absolutely full of it, putting stuff out there and then trying to weed through like who's accurate and who's not. I like all that stuff. So I can't wait to see all this stuff come out and talk about this more, and super curious to see what E3 looks like in the years to come and how that show evolves and moves forward from this. So that is going to do it for us. If you like what we do here on the channel, you like the video, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the little bell so you always know when we go live. We will continue to try and do these short takes when appropriate, when news breaks that we have things to discuss. We'll hop on here and do our best to break it down for you guys. We love having you guys out there in the chat. Brent, why don't you give a shout out one more time to everybody in the chat there for us today.
Oh, man, we have Fastback, JD, Optic Ghost was in there. I haven't seen Optic Ghost in a while. How's it going, buddy? Jacob was in there. So, the usual suspects, people that we love having in the chat, people we love talking to. We appreciate you guys very, very much. Thank you so much for stopping by, and we hope to see you guys back again soon.
Good stuff. You can follow us on Twitter at The Short Pause. You can keep up with everything that we do here on the channel and on the website. www.shortpause.com is that website if you want to check us out there. So other than that, fellas, for Brent, for Frankie, I'm Ben. That's going to do it for us this evening. We'll see you guys throughout the week with some streams and maybe some more videos. Who knows? But we'll talk to you guys next time. Have a good night.
See you guys.